Porque você não pode ficar fazendo isso a longo prazo, isso não vai dar certo. Também é o seguinte, nesse artigo aqui, Uruguay leads the world in cannabis regulation, but US law intrudes. Refere, isso é de agora, de 2018, e já estamos vendo, olha, de fevereiro desse ano. É um artigo muito bem organizado, muito bem pesquisado, e diz o seguinte: é não só as Nações Unidas que estão saboteando esse negócio do Uruguai, também são os Estados Unidos que são atrás das convenções internacionais, são os verdadeiros donos do direito internacional. Mas a lei doméstica dos Estados Unidos diz o seguinte: não tem banco que pode fazer negócio com drogas. E os bancos do Uruguai que querem fazer negócios internacionais e que também fazem negócios com as farmácias. Se eu tenho uma farmácia que vende maconha em Uruguai, eu tenho uma conta no Banco do Uruguai para o meu negócio. O Banco do Uruguai vai ser fechado porque é lavagem de dinheiro. Do ponto de vista dos Estados Unidos, quando entra dinheiro de venda de cannabis ou de compra de cannabis por fins recreativos, isso é crime organizado. E cada dinheiro que entra e sai dessa conta da minha farmácia é dinheiro do crime organizado. O Banco do Uruguai, então, é parceiro do crime organizado, está lavando dinheiro. E se o Banco do Uruguai tem negócio com um banco nos Estados Unidos, o banco nos Estados Unidos é obrigado a denunciar o Banco do Uruguai com o FBI, com o CIA, com o DEA, etc. E vai ser castigado o Banco do Uruguai, também o Banco Americano que faz negócios com o Banco do Uruguai, vão ter que pagar 3 trilhões de multas e vai ser o fim do Banco do Uruguai. Então, o Banco do Uruguai não tem mais relacionamento com nenhuma farmácia. E as farmácias agora estão se retirando, são essas 6 farmácias que foram embora, de medo de tudo isso, que vai quebrar a farmácia, e o banco está com medo que vai quebrar o banco. Então, o Uruguai agora está pensando em mudar o sistema e estabelecer dispensaries, lugares para dispensar maconha para cash, dinheiro vivo, e de uma forma eles vão cultivar maconha, vão vender contra cash para os dispensaries, eles vão ter um monte de cash nesses dispensaries, todos esses dólares uruguaianos, e não pode nem colocar no Banco do Uruguai, porque o Banco do Uruguai diz, não! Está em pânico. Então, é uma situação já bastante complicada, é um caminho de exercer pressão sobre a República Oriental soberana do Uruguai, que não é soberana em nada, como todos nós não soberanos somos em nada que tem a ver com drogas. Então, eu acho realmente que só tem essa saída de emergência, que é desobediência civil, e quanto mais países fazem isso, criam coragem de fazer isso, tanto mais eles vão ficar prontos para negociar e dizer tudo bem, talvez tenha que reformar as convenções internacionais. Mas é um longo caminho, não está resolvido com o Uruguai, não está resolvido com os 8 estados dos Estados Unidos. E um dia, Trump vai fazer algo contra esses 8 estados dos Estados Unidos também, porque ele tem a obrigação do direito internacional de intervir em estas coisas desses 8 estados liberais. Para um tempo pode tolerar, mas isso não afeta a obrigação internacional do governo em Washington. Eles ficam com a obrigação de reprimir cada legalização. O Obama, ele falou, enquanto eu estou presidente, eu não vou interferir enquanto não vão ser atingidos os interesses da federação de Washington. Mas ele sabia também que um belo dia seriam atingidos quando vem the International Narcotics Control Board, the Commission on Narcotics Drugs and the Economic and Social Council. Quando eles vêm em cima dos Estados Unidos, eles têm que ir em cima dos estados particulares. Então, é uma guerra, é um conflito a médio e longo prazo e ninguém sabe que fim que vai levar. Mas eu quis dar um esforço sobre essas coisas estritamente legais, porque não tem muita discussão sobre essas coisas. E as pessoas muitas vezes pensam é coisa do país, mas tem esse lado do direito internacional que é um lado muito sério. Tá bom, acho que já basta para hoje. Pela paciência de jogo que vocês têm. E se tiver comentários, perguntas, etc.
I would like to talk about the ethical question that you raised earlier. I was thinking, when you reduce the discussion, when you look at the discussion and the rights framing in the way that you did, it still doesn't resolve the ethical problem, because even rights have a hierarchy, right?
Yes.
So when people can talk back to you and say, no, but this is a right of living, people are being killed for this, and you just have the right for recreational pleasure, and you're being egoistic anyhow. So you're still ethically accountable for this. But there's a way to resolve this that I was thinking, and I want to see if you agree with me. The real way to deal with the ethical problem is to understand that ethics is, the concrete practice of concrete values. So is there a way that you can really hold people accountable for that specific behavior, since society as a whole doesn't inspire altruistic feelings? So if you think about a concert, in a concert, if there's a lot of room and somebody bumped into you or stepped in your feet, you're like, come on, why did you do that? It's wrong, and this person is, ethically accountable and they're unpolite. But if there's no room and it's too crowded, and somebody wants to, enjoy the music and jump, and they jump on your foot, and you're like, okay, I understand, it's crowded here, and you cannot be held accountable for that. So it's something similar to this. In our society today, it's not possible to hold people accountable for wanting to go off some steam, and in the society so egoistic and that values so much individuality, and that has no inspiration for altruistic behavior. So that's really, I think, the point that you can confront the ethical argument. Because if you say that's a matter of right, your right of enjoying yourself is not as important as a right to live.
Yeah. I don't know if I really understood well your argument. And you say that your right to enjoying yourself is not as strong as the right to life. But are you inferring that by enjoying yourself you take somebody else's life?
In the line of argument that we were following before, yes, because if you're financing organized crime and organized crime causes
the students, the bad students.
That's the argument I'm confronting, because then would be a question of, because it's very similar to the vegetarian's argument as well. You read Peter Singer's book, and he talks about this. So you have the right to eat everything you want, but you're putting your pleasure of eating meat in front of the animals' rights to their lives and etc. So that's the kind of thing that I was confronting.
But then you say you said you found a way to reconcile it. And you say, well, the society is made up of such fuss that you cannot be held accountable.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. More than the rights thing, I believe. Thinking about society, and that wouldn't fit with Peter Singer's argument because he's a utilitarian. But that's the problem with his theory. He's a very bright man.
Yes, I also think
so. The utilitarian part is the problem, and that's the real form to approach the ethical problem, I think.
He has been de-invited from a German university close to my university at the time when he was speaking about euthanasia. People said that is all fascist stuff, and we don't want to see him here in the university. We don't want to hear him speak. And I would have liked to hear him speak, but that's it. Yeah?
Professor, there are countries that legalize drugs, but they limit the access to the drugs. For example, in Brazil we can't buy alcohol that has more than, 55% of alcohol in it, or Uruguay you said you just can only
have 100%.
40 grams per month. And before you said that the people, they have the right to use drugs, and the state does not have the right to forbid them to using drugs. So do you think that when the state limits the access to the drugs, is the state disrespecting the right of the person to use the drugs or not?
No. As long as the state respects the right to legal access for adults, he can use all sorts of restrictions. He can make it expensive by taxing it. He can put restrictions in terms of you cannot use it in public space, you cannot use it while driving, you cannot use it, I don't know, there might be a limit of restrictions, but the state that allows the citizen to have legal access to recreational substances does have the right in the public interest to limit this access, but not to bar. The difference is between restricting access and making access impossible. It is not legal from a point of view of a rights-based philosophy. It's not allowed for the state to prohibit access to something that I have a right to have. And that's that.
Excuse me, Professor. I have a question. It's like, how can Holland or maintain the legalization, or Portugal can maintain the despenalização? I don't know how to say it.
Despenalização.
Yeah.
Depenalization or decriminalization. Yeah, that's very good.
I would add my
Yes.
question as well. Wouldn't this be a way, the non-enforcement of the law like they do in Holland,
Yes.
or a different treatment of drugs like they have in Portugal?
Yeah. Okay. That was part of my speech today. I just was so slow that we didn't come to those points. But of course, I have Portugal here, so we start with Portugal first, and we come to Holland. Portugal is the only country that uses the word decriminalization in its drug law of 2001. They use expressively the term decriminalization. And what they did was they decriminalized all drugs, not only marijuana, but all drugs. But in reality, they did not decriminalize the whole drugs, but only for the consumers. So when you are a consumer of cocaine, then everything is okay. And you can have as much cocaine as you need for your personal use. And the police might stop you, they might even send you to a Conselho de Conselhos, and you will meet social workers and a doctor, and they will talk with you. You might even be fined, theoretically. So it is not a legalization, it's a decriminalization. You have two types of decriminalization. One is to take it out of the criminal code, but to leave it in the administrative injustice code. Injusto administrativo. And the other way of decriminalization is legalization. That is also a kind of decriminalization, but it is a legalization. And then in legalization you have two types. One is a strict regulation, and the other one is a liberal regulation. That's the way I would use these terms. But everybody uses them completely at will, at libido. But I use them like this. Okay. There is a very good article by Glenn Greenwald, a good friend of Edward Snowden's, who has helped Snowden in his activities and who is a very bright guy who lives in Rio de Janeiro and speaks very good Portuguese, and he has appeared at the organization of Maria Lucia Caran of LEAP in Rio de Janeiro, and you can find a speech by Glenn Greenwald in Portuguese about the Portuguese drug decriminalization, which he has given with Maria Lucia Caran in Rio. He has also published in Portuguese a report about the experiences with the Portuguese decriminalization law. Now, what I don't like about the Portuguese decriminalization law, which works very well, is the following. It is decriminalized, but it's still forbidden. And I don't like that, because when you have a right of access, then it should not be forbidden. And you should not be forced to talk with psychologists when you don't want to accept it, when you're really crazy. So, also, traffic in these drugs is still a crime, and you still go 15 years to prison when you enter with a lot of maconha in Portugal. So, this is a very sad state of affairs, because when you have a right to drug use, then of course people have a right to deliver you. When I have a right to drink crystal water, then there is somebody else who has a right to produce it and to sell it to me, and I have a right to buy it. You cannot trade. You cannot say you have the right to use it, but nobody has the right to sell it to you. That is absurd. And this absurdity, even worse in Portugal because it's not even legal. It's decriminalized and it's very good, and gracias a Deus. But what they have a situation for drugs in Portugal today that is exactly the same situation as the situation for alcohol during the American alcohol prohibition. For users during alcohol prohibition, alcohol use, alcohol possession, and even to buy alcohol was legal. That is, consumers were legal during alcohol prohibition in the United States. So what this reform in Portugal made was to reduce the hyper-prohibition of illegal drugs to the level of American alcohol prohibition in the 1920s. And that was a catastrophe because they were trying to make it impossible to produce and sell alcohol. And so it's not solved in Portugal. It's much better than before, but it's still a far, far way from how it should be. This is what Portugal is all about. But the world is so crazy that even to bring a hyper-prohibition to the level of American alcohol prohibition, today they think, oh, this is a revolution. That's crazy. So much about Portugal. And Holland, of course, it's a good idea. The Dutch political system is a brilliant system, and the society is very interesting. And I have done research for my doctoral thesis about the difference between Holland and Germany in their drug policies since the no sé cuándo. Germany would never ever had this policy. The Dutch policy is we stay in the international conventions, and we like the international conventions. They just do as if they were just fond of the international conventions. Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic, these conventions. And oh no, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to change these conventions. And then they say, first of all, we will continue to fight against international drug trafficking, and we will put all the traffickers in prison, and this is actually what they're doing. Then they say, well, there is cannabis. Cannabis maybe is not the worst drug in the world. And so in their national law, they say there are drugs with a tolerable risk. And that was a sociologist who invented that in the 1970s. And they put it in their law in 1976 already. Cannabis can be considered a drug with a tolerable risk. We don't want to legalize it, but we tell our Ministerio Público, our prosecutors, that of all the drugs and of all the crimes, cannabis is the least important. So please go after all the crimes first and after all the other drugs first. And you go after the traffickers of cannabis. And then when you have too much manpower and too much time and you don't know what to do and all the crimes are solved, then you go after cannabis consumption. And you go after these little shops that sell cannabis to individual users. This is how the Dutch tolerance policy was born. Of course it's illegal. We like the conventions. Of course it must be illegal. But it is the lowest priority for the prosecutor. And so you can even establish a little coffee shop under 5 conditions. And if you fulfill these 5 conditions, then it will be the last priority to get on your nerves. Of course, a prosecutor could do it, but there is a rule for the prosecutors that comes from the Ministry of Justice that tells the prosecutor, don't mess with these shops as long as you have not solved all the other crimes. And so they don't. And it is in written, that's a written form. And so as a prosecutor, I say, oh no, I still have other cases to solve. So that's a policy. And they just, it's legal, we love the conventions, everything is okay. But you can have coffee shops, you can buy cannabis, and that's okay. But you cannot store more than 500 grams of cannabis in your shop. And of course, you are not allowed to buy cannabis from a dealer. The cannabis shop owner is not allowed to buy amounts of cannabis from a dealer. That is a crime. And theoretically, the prosecutor would be obliged to go after the owner of the shop, because he, of course, buys large quantities from it. So that is a so-called backdoor problem that the Dutch never resolved. Even with their tolerance policy, there's some contradiction. But de facto, they don't go after the owners of the shops, even though they buy from big dealers who are big dealers and they are very criminal in the eyes of the Dutch law. But they are just being kind of tolerated. And now, in March 2018, they started a little program of legal cultivation of cannabis, and maybe they will try to solve the backdoor problem, but nobody really knows how. It's a complicated process. There are some Dutch documents about how to legalize it, etc. But it's very complicated, and there's a lot of pressure from the International Narcotics Control Board. The present government of Holland is very conservative, and the number of coffee shops is going down. There had been more than 2,000 coffee shops in Holland. Today, there are 573 in only 103 municipalities out of 380. The number of coffee shops is decreasing quite rapidly. Some towns say we don't sell for foreigners, especially at the German border. So things are getting more restricted, and the International Narcotics Control Board is watching it, and they have been watching for years, and they have exerting pressure, and they have been using a lot of pressure, and really things are getting more restricted. So that is also not a solution for eternity, and that can very well be that things will get even more complicated. There are some signs that things are getting more complicated this year already. So it's a good way of dealing with a situation that you cannot change, but it's not a solution for the long term. And as we can see, neither the Portuguese way nor the Dutch way is a solution to the problem. The Uruguay way is a very courageous way. It's completely illegal, but at least they say, well, we'll legalize it. This is something that the Dutch don't say, the Portuguese don't say. And so I think the best way really is Uruguay, tell it how it is, do it like you want to do it, like you think it's right, hope that you will get some solidarity from other countries, and this is why we should all show some solidarity, go to Uruguay and buy 1 or 2 packages even if we don't smoke. Okay, I think that's enough for today. There's nothing urgent anymore than we deserve. Thank you very much.
Então, aproveitar para dar por encerrada a nossa jornada com o professor Sebastian Scheerer. Queria agradecer muito a presença dele aqui em nome do professor Maurício e dizer que ele será sempre muito bem-vindo aqui na USP. O professor Maurício pede desculpa por não estar nesse último dia, mas que ele teve que resolver algumas questões profissionais, mas pediu para avisar que o tapete vermelho está sempre estendido para o senhor aqui na Universidade de São Paulo. Tá bom? Obrigado para quem...
Muito obrigado você e vocês. Viu? Muito obrigado. E pela sua paciência e participação. Adorei.
Agradecer a todo mundo que teve a disposição de ficar esses 3 dias e agora até o final da tarde, e uma boa noite para todo mundo.